Let's talk about safety within real estate investing.
Keep my situational awareness up, so I'm watching over my shoulders. I'm making sure nobody's like coming from behind me or anything like that. But I announce my presence. You know, if I go look at a house, I can tell you where the bathroom's located. I can tell you where the front, the kitchen, the laundry room, all these different things just based on piping on the outside, windows on the outside. And it's like you do an analysis when you roll up on scene before you hit a house to find out where these things are so that you have a little bit of information up front.
So there are a lot of crazy stories with real estate and people in the real estate that aren't supposed to be in the real estate that investors deal with, agents deal with, all kinds of things like that. And so we're going to talk about that today on this 51st episode of the REI-NWA Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Coley Bailey, principal broker at Lone Rock Realty. And today, I've got Anthony Pellouso with me.
How's it going?
Doing well, man. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So you used to be in law enforcement.
Yes.
Now you're into security.
Yes.
You own a security company.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit. So obviously we're going to get into, you know, some crazy investor stories, ways to stay safe, all that good stuff. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Sure.
Like who you are, where are you from?
Sure.
How did you get here, and what are you doing?
Sure. So my name's Anthony Pellouso. I own Arkansas Security here in Springdale, Arkansas. I was a police officer for 8 years in California. Before getting out of law enforcement, I had been on Bigger Pockets and listening to real estate, podcasts and YouTube and all those types of investment things. And it really caught my attention.
Yep.
And law enforcement at the time was getting really tumultuous in California.
Yeah.
Along with, I have a family with 4 kids, and I was a detective at the time, so I was always gone.
Yeah.
So it made it a little hard on the family, and obviously the risk involved in the business of law enforcement. Mm-hmm. We decided to leave California altogether, and we actually moved to Idaho. I started in real estate by going to meetups and networking with folks, because you can listen to as many YouTube videos and podcasts and things like that, but the action's really where you start getting involved in real estate. And so,
and it's not just the information, it's your network. It's the people that you meet that you can call upon, that you can do deals with, that you can find deals from.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Without going to those meetups, I wouldn't have met the people that were put in my place and were able to help me get into real estate. But I started wholesaling in Idaho. I wholesaled about 19 deals my first year in real estate. It took me 6 months to get my first deal. Yeah. But after that, they kind of fall in place, especially knowing your network.
Yep.
You get deals brought to you quite often.
Yeah.
When I came to Arkansas, that was back in 2020. I had started marketing to the Northwest Arkansas area after doing some research on real estate here locally. And I got 2 deals under contract. Before I even got here, I had talked to the sellers and got them so that I knew I was going to have some income coming in to a new place, right? And when I got here, I realized when I tried to sell those deals, prices were a little too high that I was offering the sellers. I was trying to find a seller that would buy these at a wholesale price for me to be able to make money. Unfortunately, prices were too high. So I looked at an alternative, and I had flipped 4 or 5 houses by that time. So I had some flipping experience, but I wasn't like a flipper. That wasn't my primary source of income. So I ended up going to the REI group, and I was networking with folks, and I found a couple of investors that were there that wanted to partner on the deal with me. And we ended up doing both these houses. Turned out really well for us, but that's what started my flipping journey in Northwest Arkansas.
So there was enough room to flip, but not enough room to wholesale.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So, and so now you have bought Arkansas Security.
Right. So last year, along with I flip about 8 houses a year, and along with flipping, I was looking for a business that
business to
cash
buy.
flows and that I could buy it and run the business and then also continue flipping because, as most people say, to create generational wealth, you have to have 7 streams of income. And so I'm working on building my streams of income up.
Yeah.
And so last year, beginning of last year, I made a goal to buy a business, cash flowing business, find a retiring business owner. And luckily enough, one of the investors that my first house that I did here in Northwest Arkansas, her husband owned Arkansas Security.
Yep.
And over coffee, we chatted, and she told me that he was getting ready to retire, and that I should look into buying Arkansas Security. And so it was the beginning of 2023.
Yeah.
I had already made this goal to myself to buy a business, and why not take the opportunity to do it?
Yeah.
And it took me about 9 months of doing due diligence, but we acquired it last November.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing Arkansas Security for this last year so far. So
That's great, man. And it fits so well with your background and
it does. It
that's
definitely
great.
helps. It gives when you go out and talk to clients or potential clients, and you tell them you were previously law enforcement, especially in the security world, people take that and go, "Oh, this guy has real world experience that he's seen what happens when you don't have security." or whatever that case is. So with Arkansas Security, it's a commercial and residential. So some of the things may not translate as far as like what you would typically be looking at in a residential home or in a security system at home. A lot of it is like business related. So we're talking cameras and access control and things like that. For customers or for protection of assets and their properties. But my background really does. I mean, as a police officer, when I was on SWAT, we would go and do analysis of warrant houses that we were going to hit, and we would map everything out. And I could tell you, if I go look at a house, I can tell you where the bathroom's located. I could tell you where the kitchen, the laundry room, all these different things just based on piping on the outside, windows on the outside. And it's like you do an analysis when you roll up on scene before you hit a house to find out where these things are so that you have a little bit of information up front, right?
Yeah.
So that, coupled with the construction background that I had, it really fit really well.
Yeah. That's great, man. So let's talk about safety within real estate investing. I mean, there's so many avenues this could go, but from looking at properties, because a lot of times we're looking at, rundown, vacant properties. Maybe we think nobody's been living there for years. Maybe we're wrong about that.
That's true. So if you're a real estate investor and you're going out and looking at dilapidated buildings or vacant buildings, the best thing that I would say, and I do this literally every time I go to a house, keep my situational awareness up. So I'm watching over my shoulders. I'm making sure nobody's like coming from behind me or anything like that. But I announce my presence. So when I go and knock on a door or when I go and open a door, it's always like, I'm announcing who I am. Hey, is anybody home? Anybody here? And it's being as friendly as possible because you don't want to come off as adversarial because then it leaves room for them to be taking it as a threat.
Right.
And so if you're nice about it and there is somebody there, usually they're like, hey, I'm not, I just was sleeping here or whatever the case is.
Right.
But most of the time, if you announce yourself and you go in, you're not going to have any issues. Situational awareness, though, is probably one of the biggest things that I would tell anybody, whether they're going to the mall or going to look at a house.
Even before going in a house, are there some things to be aware of from the exterior, maybe?
I mean, not that I can think of from the exterior. Now, if we're talking safety for like a landlord or safety for an actual resident in a house, I would say a clean yard is probably one of the best things that you can do because it doesn't attract vagrants or it doesn't attract somebody who wants to go and do something nefarious inside of a building.
Right.
So I don't know if you've ever heard of the broken window theory, but the broken window theory is if you have one broken window in this house on this block, there's potential to have more things come, more damage come, or
Yeah.
it brings a target to that area or to that
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
And so if you have a broken window in a house and you have a vacant property, but you want to keep that property nice, go and fix the broken window.
Yeah.
Trim your bushes down, mow your grass, because if I'm walking by, most criminals are opportunistic. They're not like out targeting people.
Yeah.
They're just walking by.
Yeah.
And they see, oh, this house isn't taken care of. Probably a good place for me to go and hang out or hide or, whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Cool. What about when you're building, or you've got a property that you're flipping, and you've got construction, and you've got tools, and you've got, lots of copper wire.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, in California, copper wire it was such a bad, it's so hard to maintain, because if you go around and you look at all these new builds here, they leave windows open, doors open, things like that.
Yeah.
In California, you can't do that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Literally all the copper wire would be stolen every single day. There is no. So here's a little bit different that I've seen in California. Some things are a little more safe. However, I was flipping a house in Springdale, and typically, if I was going to and from the property pretty much every day, I was leaving my tools in my toolbox, inside the center of the room or somewhere out of sight of the main windows where people are walking by. And I'm locking the doors, and I'm leaving, and I'm coming back, and I'm doing my thing, right? But we had an issue in Springdale, and something went missing from one of my subs' toolbox. And so we, asked everybody that was coming in and out and making sure that their stuff was not being touched. And we figured out that it wasn't any of the subs or the crews that were coming into the house. I set up a game cam outside of the house on a tree, actually, and we saw a man come in at like 3:00 in the morning through the backyard. And he opened the back garage door, and that's how he gained entry. Yeah. So it's not, it can still happen even in Northwest Arkansas, believe it or not. But one thing you can do is watch either the news or talk to friends who are in law enforcement, or even just talking to local law enforcement to find out what trends and things are happening.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but back in March, they had a string of vehicle burglaries in Bentonville. I would have never known that had I not talked to one of the law enforcement officers at the farmer's market.
Oh, okay.
So, as simple as, hey, how's it going? What's going on in the city of Bentonville, and just find out what is happening, so that you're aware of those things, right?
Yeah.
If you can prevent some of those things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it's always good to chat with the local law enforcement, and show them a little support, and build goodwill there, and that's anyway. not everybody treats them that way.
Yeah, that's true.
It probably gets you a long way if you do treat them well.
It sure does.
Yeah.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, well, we're going to dig into safety and security even more with Anthony at the Landlord Lunch. It is coming up on October 17th, 2024. It'll be at noon at the Wagon Wheel Cafe in Springdale. As always, $0 at the door for REI-NWA members, $20 if you're not. But you might as well just join. You get so many benefits. Go to REI-NWA.com and you can register right there. And then you get years worth of backlog content from all of the speakers for the last, 5 or 6 years. So a lot of great investing content. But make sure you are coming out to the meetings so you can actually meet people and you can actually do deals with people like Anthony was talking about. So we look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for checking out this podcast. We'll see you on the next one.